Welcome back, everybody, to Todd's podcast. My guest today is Gene Conrad. Gene has quite a background in aviation and here in Lakeland with Lakeland Airport, now with FUN and the Aerospace Center for Excellence. So we're going to talk to Gene a little bit about that, kind of a little bit about his background, growing up, find out what makes him tick, and talk about hopefully some interesting things. So Gene, welcome. Glad you're here.
Well, thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me. And before we came on, you were just telling me some of the guests you've already had. I'm like, well, there's some esteemed air there. I can't even believe that I'm even at this. I think what am I, 15 or 16? I'm still in the teens for your podcast. So I'm very happy to be here. So thank you.
The neat thing about it is this is the first time I've really done this, and they've all been interviewed before, so they know how to pick me up when I might have been stumbling, or they could expand on an answer if we need a little more time. So they certainly made it easier. And I've heard you being interviewed on other podcasts and in front of other people, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But just kind of start talking a little bit about how you grew up. You got brothers and sisters. I think you were in Ohio, and you always wanted to be a Gator, but you couldn't quite get in.
No Gator in me. No, it's none whatsoever. But I was born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So kind of put it into context. The largest fly-in air show in the country is in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, called AirVenture. And AirVenture is part of the Experimental Aircraft Association, right? So grew up there. My dad was the airport director there from 1975, the year I was born, until 1987. So I've grown up and been around aviation my whole life. And then when I was 11, we moved to Huntsville, Alabama, where he became the airport director at Huntsville International Airport. And then after that, he became the airport director at Dayton International Airport. So that's what got me to Ohio at some point. But I got to back up, though, because, living in Alabama, my mom and dad went to Auburn. They got married at Auburn. So I graduated from Ohio State. So everybody's like, how are you not an Ohio State fan? Why are you an Auburn fan? Well, I went to Auburn my first 2.5 years. My mom and dad got married there.
Right.
I've grown up with Auburn my whole life. Went there, had a good 2.5 years, and then I've got too involved in things I probably shouldn't have been doing, like going to bars and other things, not going to class. So my dad kicked me off the payroll and took a sabbatical for about 1.5 years, and then up in Connecticut, and then I wound up in Ohio when my dad was the airport director there at Dayton, and got back on the right path and finished out quickly at Ohio State my last 2 years and graduated.
I didn't have quite that path, but I understand the distractions of going to college. I got in the University of Florida when I was 17, not because I was smart, just because I had a late birthday. So going off to college when you're 17 and learning that's where the bad stuff can happen.
Yes.
That's where you pick up bad habits and you do them quite well. And I had 5 wonderful years at the University of Florida.
Yes.
And so I certainly understand. You say your dad ran the airport in Oshkosh. Did he run the air show as well? Was that part of the airport, or is it bifurcated?
Well, no, it's bifurcated. It's a completely separate organization. So, the airport and then the Experimental Aircraft Association. So they're a tenant of the airport. Similar situation here in Lakeland, right? I was the airport director here in Lakeland for 12 years, and FUN is our tenant, is the airport's tenant. So, similar type situation. But, as the airport director, whether it was me here or him there, you're pretty hands-on with the events because they're very, very large events. Right. AirVenture's 7 days, ours is 6 days, but there's year-round planning that's going on. And there's also planning for the future and how those, whether it was AirVenture and now FUN, we can get into it later, about how, our event here will continue to grow and expand, with the growth of the airport as well. So it's a year-round gig. There's a lot going on.
Right, you execute the plan for 6 days,
yes,
but the plan is a 365-day year planning thing.
And, something to say, too, to kind of put again in context, is the whole reason I moved here to Polk County in January 2010 is because FUN's at Lakeland Linder Airport. So when I found out that the airport director position was available in the summer of 2009, actually at AirVenture,
right?
Because I volunteered up there for the last 35 years, but I learned that the job was open here in Lakeland. I'm like, well, Lakeland, FUN's there. And I came here with my father in 2003 to go to the air show. So I'd already been here, knew about it. And again, our show growing up out of the Experimental Aircraft Association, I was just like, oh, that's perfect for me. Plus, it's Florida. I mean, who doesn't want to be here in Florida, especially way back then in 2010. So got here in January of 2010, but Only reason I came here is because of Sun and Fun. So I had a great run at the airport for 12 years. And, I departed almost 2 years ago now, left the airport, left the city of Lakeland. And even last night, people are still asking me, what led you to leave the airport? I'm like, well, my predecessor decided to retire.
Right.
And I love that organization. And again, the whole reason I even moved here, because Sun and Fun was here, and had a great run at the airport. I said, let's go try this and move on.
Everyone talks about Oshkosh being the biggest and
Yes.
Sun and Fun. It's like, how much bigger is it than
It
Sun
is
and Fun?
probably 4 times
Oh my
larger
gosh.
than our event.
And how do you measure that? By the attendees, by the number of planes that come in? I mean, you're packing 4 times in 7 days, and you're 6 days.
There's several different metrics you can use. Last year they had 650,000 visitors or guests. We had about 200,000. They have about 12,000 airplanes that show up. We probably have anywhere between 3,500 and 4,000. They have 46,000 campers show up. They basically have a little city, right? And we have about probably 10,000 campers, people that camp on the airport with us, right? So there's different ways to
Right.
skin that cat, but also we will never be, our goal number one is not to be AirVenture.
Right.
It's a great event. It's been going on for well over 75 years or however long it's been now. But we're Sun and Fun, but we want to be a better version of them because we're smaller. Their land mass and what they're able to spread out on during the event, we would never be bigger. We just don't have enough acreage to be able to do something like that. And it's not our goal either. And also when you look at AirVenture, it's at the end of July, historically every year. We're in April. So all the
Horrible
kiddos.
time to have one here. in
Well,
July.
here July is horrible here,
right.
but up there in July, everybody's on summer vacation, so you can get the families there, more kids and all that stuff. We have our fair share, but spring breaks they're staggered around us, and all that. So it's just a different time of year, but we're very, very happy with what we have and what we've been able to build and how we've been able to grow over the last 50 years now.
So you learned how to grow an air show and to run an airport by watching your dad, I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yes.
Was he able to take you to work? I know I worked a little bit with my dad in the real estate business. Take your son to work, and I grew up putting his signs up. I was the barely minimum wage labor, my brothers and I, but that's how we lived, and it worked out. So
Yeah, I loved going to work with my father, and especially during EA or AirVenture, at the time. But it was, I tell this story all the time. He was busy and there's a lot going on. And basically some days I would show up at the airport terminal and I would sit in his office and I would sit there for 4 hours waiting for him to come get me. And then once he did come and get me, we would go somewhere on the airfield. He'd be like, sit in that chair and don't move. And he'd literally come back like 2 hours later. I'm like, okay, I didn't move, because if I moved or didn't do what he requested me to do, I would not be out there.
Yeah.
And, so I just got to watch stuff, right? And I went to work with him. Even in Huntsville, I was around all the time. He did some great things there, built a new terminal there, did a big air cargo deal there in Huntsville as well. But then when he got to Dayton, finishing up Ohio State, my first airport job, official job, was at Port Columbus. I was an airport operations coordinator. Was there for about a year, and then a position came open in Dayton. And unfortunately, my dad was diagnosed with a 1 in a million type cancer in 2000, and a position open in Dayton. And I got to go over there, and I got to work with him for about 5 years, which was awesome. Right. So unfortunately, he passed away in 2005, but to be there, help him through some of his surgeries and various things, but just to be there, watch him, I got to do things probably I would not be able to do if I worked at some other airport. There was another leadership, another CEO or airport director, but good times. And I learned a lot. I learned how to, I will tell you, I am much calmer than he was,
Right.
As far as, if there are things going on and blood pressure's boiling and, and there's situations and whatnot, because I watched him and he would probably go off the handle just a little bit.
Sometimes for effect.
I watched him make some people in his office cry sometimes, and I was like, I am not going to do that. So, but he had his own style, but he had a big heart too at the same time. And we are always supposed to be better than our parents, right? So none of us are perfect. We all learn things. Trust me, I'm not perfect. My boys are watching me. I have a 16-year-old and a 4-year-old almost in February, but they're watching me, so hopefully they'll be better than I am.
You said something as you watched him. You didn't go out on the grounds with him all the time, but you watched him. That's a big part of growing up, is learning. If you were fortunate to have a father who's around, which I was, that's what I learned in real estate, was not so much on how to do a deal, but how to treat people, how to talk to people. I learned the language. I had to learn the business of being a realtor. You had to learn the business of running it, but you learned how to say things, what to say. You learned what you didn't.
Yep.
You didn't like how your dad said something. You learned how sometimes he said it for effect, and sometimes he just said it because he was mad, and you've made your adjustment accordingly. Did you play any sports in high school or any extracurricular? Or was it all centered around airport or?
No, I mean, I played basketball in middle school. In high school, I didn't officially play on the basketball team. I was kind of like on the practice squad because I didn't really have a growth spurt until I was like at the end of my junior year. But I was a little scrappy dude, and I like to play basketball, but I never was officially on the team. But, I played, practice squad basically for them and stuff like that. But, and I like to golf.
Are you any good?
I can go out there, so I probably play about 2 to 3 times a year, and I can go out there and shoot in the 90s. And if it's a really good day, I mean, I'll be like low 90s. So because I learned, I worked at a country club in Huntsville, Alabama, Valley Hill Country Club, and was the bag boy and cleaned people's clubs and ran the carts and did all that stuff. But we got to play for free on Mondays. So I played a lot way back when, and it's just funny because as you get older, you learn. Back then, you try to hit it hard. Right, because you're trying to get the distance. Now, all I care about is hitting it straight. I don't care how far it went. I'll figure, just hit it straight again.
I try and hit it hard still. I just have trouble seeing the ball on the ground. My eyesight's not as good, and I don't pivot as well. So, a tight back and everything.
Yeah.
Earlier in your career, you decided, hey, I think I want to be in the aerospace or the aeronautical business, and you've been able to carve out that. Are you a pilot? Do you have a pilot's license? Any interest in ever doing that?
I am not a pilot. And when people hear that they just assume that I am, right? Sure. Because I live and breathe this stuff all day long. But I'm not a pilot. I will tell you, and some of your listeners out there, and they like to give me a hard time about it, but I'm in ground school right now.
Good.
All right. That doesn't mean it's going to get done in a year, so everybody just relax. But, I'm working on it right now. But I will tell you, growing up with my father and up at AirVenture, unfortunately, at a young age, I saw a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have seen. Airplanes go down, unfortunately. I've seen people be pulled out of airplanes because I was close to it and all of that. So, but also at the same time, my brain likes logistics and operations, and I like the movement of things and how it all functions together, and it's all a ballet.
Right.
Whether it's the airport like Linder and how it operates, or Bartow or Winter Haven every single day, and air shows, it's just how it all is put together. My brain likes that. I don't sit here and say I want to get in a plane and go up in the air because that's fun. That's not me. I don't have boats. I don't have motorcycles.
Right.
I love my hobby and my career are aviation and what I do, and airports and Sun and Fun.
Have you ever thought about jumping out of an airplane?
I had an opportunity with the Golden Knights several years ago, and I passed.
Would they strap you onto themselves, or would they just
take
you out, hold your hand, and
I
let you go?
I would be tandem, but I passed because I'm not going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
It just seems so unnatural to have the guts.
It is completely unnatural. It's completely unnatural, but some people love that adrenaline thing, and I've bungee jumped. Okay, so I've done that, but I'm not trying to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. It's not happening.
So when you came to Lakeland, you came down to run the airport, Lakeland Linder. And that's about when I became a county commissioner. I was at the end of 10. So, I got to see a different level than some other folks. And I was so impressed at how you ran the airport. I'm not an airport guy. I'm not a pilot. I'm kind of afraid to fly, if you want to know the truth, on sometimes. But you had a lot of success here, in my opinion, with Amazon certainly being a pinnacle, but Draken, the Hurricane Hunters, the runway lengthening and expansion. When you came in, did you kind of say, hey, I got a plan, or do you wake up every day and say, what's in front of me and how do I tackle it?
That's a great question. I will tell you, so when I came to interview, and this was probably...
Amazon wasn't what they were even when you started.
Oh, there was none of that. But when I came to interview in the fall of 2009, I remember there was a big panel of folks. I was in the restaurant at the airport terminal at the time, and they hadn't had a restaurant in there a while. There was a bad smell in that space that we were in, and the airport it was completely neglected.
Right.
right? And people will tell you around the city. I mean, it was just, if the airport wasn't making waves or it wasn't on the front page of the paper, it was just let it be. No one wanted to deal with it, and, we, unfortunately, before I got there, the airport director at the time, John DeBose, great guy, but he was an accountant, and they put him in as the airport director. I mean, it's not his fault. Like, so things weren't going great, but I told people all the time, how can you blame him?
Right.
I mean, it's not his fault. Now, granted, he should have known he probably was over his skis a little bit. Great guy, don't get me wrong, but things got in a bad way. So even when I was looking to come here, I was reading minutes from Airport Advisory Board meetings that they were having, and it was so contentious and all of these things, right? So, but at the time, I'm 34 years old. I'm young and dumb. Here I come, and
Changing the world.
We're going to change the world and do all these things. And, I walk in, and there were some days I'm like, what am I doing here? Right? I mean, it just, again, wasn't taken care of. There was no plan of attack. There was no cohesion with the team, the airport team, the employees that were out there at the time. And, to be honest, I think it was just, hey, we're going to move in a direction. And we just started moving. And, there were failures. We had Sky King here at one point. Right. Direct Air was here at one point.
Did Sky King ever really come? I know there was big hype about coming, but that didn't seem like they lasted very long.
No, they were here. Sky King, the airline, and their headquarters and their maintenance folks were here. And they were in our buildings, and they were paying us when they had the money.
Right.
They were paying us rent payments and all of that. But I will tell you, it was just, we had to start doing something, right? We had to start doing something aviation related, because there was concern too, because we had a lot of square footage with the old Piper facility.
Correct.
From the business community, us, the airport or the government competing with the private sector, because warehousing at that time, we had this big 500,000 square foot facility, and warehousing at the time, there was a lot less space, and there was more competition. And so why would the government be competing with the private sector? Totally get it. But we need to get aviation businesses in there then, right? And so we did that. But we had some ups and downs. We had some successes. We had some failures. But we had to move in a direction. One of the other big things was, prior to my time, is there were monies with the city of Lakeland that they were supposed to spend on some projects. And the money didn't get spent in the right way that FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, was that they wanted them to spend.
Right.
And once we made an investment of about $1 million in the facilities, fixing up the old Airside Center and all that for Sky King to come in and others, but we spent that money. And once this is completely how it went down. Once we spent that money and we made it right with them, coming in and building the relationships back up, because the relationships broken all over the place. Once we opened that back up and mended that fence, the floodgates as far as funding from the state and the FAA just came nonstop.
Right.
Over $250 million in grant funds in 12 years.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the airport needed it. It needed a lot of love.
Right. But, you had just mentioned that you had warehouse space and you don't want to compete, but you do need the warehouse. You need the warehouse space at an airport to be there when you have an aviation business that wants to come in. Draken couldn't have gone anywhere else. Hurricane Hunters couldn't have gone anywhere else. Amazon, yeah, they're everywhere, but they couldn't have, their airside.
Yep.
So you do have to, you grew it so that you don't have people who don't need an airport. You kind of have gotten it back to where it's air focused.
Yes.
And I think that should be commended, but I think that takes direction, a deliberative direction by the airport director and your team, and I think you accomplished a lot of that.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing was about having a plan too. So when I first got there, we did airport master plan. Basically, it's our 20-year plan. Now, granted, we update it every 5 years or whatnot, but everything that we did in our 20-year plan, we did that in 10 years, right? So lots of questions with like Amazon, for example, like, how did they get here? And, none of this stuff was talked about, all these deals were done in the dark and all that stuff. And, that's not obviously how it all went down. But really what changed the airport to what it is today was the foresight of the city commission at the time back in the 90s.
Wow.
Because the big runway that's 8,500 foot now, 1028, was only 6,000 feet. So when that runway was extended to 8,500 feet, that's what opened the airport up to what it is today, right? So
I thought
forget
you
it.
extended it to 10.
No, it's not 10.
It's
only
85.
8,500.
Okay.
We rebuilt it and put $25 million in to fix it and build it up to a standard, which makes it a very viable piece of pavement now. But when you think about it, we wouldn't have Draken. we wouldn't have NOAA, the hurricane hunters. Forget about Amazon for a second, but Draken and NOAA wouldn't be there because we wouldn't have had the runway length. Right. And now Amazon's there, so they spent well over $200 million in their facility. At the time that the airport, we put $18 million into the ground, to put all the infrastructure in place for them. But again, they wouldn't be there. Amazon wouldn't be there. No other hurricane hunters, Draken, and a lot of the business jets that we have today, or now the airline, Avelo, wouldn't be able to operate in and out of that airport unless that was done back in the early 90s.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate. Since 1996, the firm has offered unrivaled brokerage services throughout Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. With over 90 expert advisors throughout the region, our team has the knowledge and resources to help clients realize their most ambitious real estate investment goals. When you choose SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, you have access to a diverse suite of commercial and land services, including forestry consulting, land management, auctions, property management, commercial leasing, and negotiating conservation easements. If you're seeking to invest in land or explore commercial real estate opportunities in the Southeast, contact us today at svnsaunders.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. Once again, that's svnsaunders.com or by phone at 877-518-5263.
So we've talked a little about Amazon. When they came in, there was a big hubbub about noise.
Yep.
And I know you had to deal with that and worked with them. Has that kind of been resolved? I know the mayor was involved with that because he was kind of in a flight path. Do you think that's been mitigated to the extent that it can be? Has it kind of died down a little?
Well, I mean, obviously there's always, when the operation first starts, because it's new, right? I will tell you, I mean, I've been away from it now for 2 years, but I mean, I still talk to my airport friends, but it's really, as far as the unhappiness, I mean, people are probably still unhappy, but as far as complaints, for example, those have gone down dramatically.
Good.
But I know the airport's still working. There are new approaches that will go into effect to help offset that. But the problem with noise is, if it was here, if it's at point A and you're going to move it over towards point B, you're just going to affect someone else. Right?
They don't make the planes quieter.
They are, right? But it all takes time. And new generation aircraft, they're getting quieter all the time, but it doesn't happen overnight, right? So there's no, you can mitigate, but there's no just, I can click my fingers. There's no silver bullet to just fix it for everybody. But again, I mean, when you look at the airport, and back in 2010, there were 800 people that worked at that airport. There's now over 3,000, right? I mean,
not employees of the airport,
not employees,
but people that work on
that work at businesses,
their business, private
businesses.
businesses.
Yeah, so all that investment, all these things, that's what it's done, right? And people don't necessarily appreciate it.
Probably three high-paying jobs.
Yes, a lot of them are. Especially an aircraft mechanic, for example, you're starting at $50,000, $60+ thousand a year. I mean, so these are the good, high skill, high wage jobs. But people don't necessarily appreciate, whether it's our airport or the other airports in Polk County, the importance of the airports, because we don't have commercial service as of yet. Now Velo's coming to Lakeland Linder, but there's a lot of employment, there's a lot of business, and the economic impact of all four of the airports now in the county is about $1.9 billion, which back in 2010 was about $350 million. Wow. So it's significant. So not only Lakeland, but Bartow and Winter Haven, all the investment that's occurred by all the airports and new businesses, I mean, it's significant.
So let's move on from your time at Lakeland Linder now to what you're doing with the Aerospace Center for Excellence, and tell us a little bit about what that does.
Sure.
And, I think Sun and Fun's underneath that, or a part of that. Tell us a little about the relationship there.
Well, so kind of like to set all this up for folks. So especially for our friends who've been here in Polk County for a long time. So everybody knows us for Sun and Fun, right? Correct. Obviously, 50 years, and it's awesome. But there's always been two 501c3 not-for-profits. So there was Sun and Fun Flying Inc., and there's Florida Air Museum Inc., right? And so what happened probably about 5 or 6 years ago is the board took Florida Air Museum Inc., turned that into the Aerospace Center for Excellence, right? Which is now the parent company of Sun and Fun Flying Inc. So it used to be Sun and Fun and then Florida Air Museum, and they
Right.
flipped it but changed the name of the Florida Air Museum to Aerospace Center for Excellence. So that's the parent company. And then, obviously our flying. And so all of our educational programming sits under the Aerospace Center for Excellence, and then we have the flying. And again, this year is our 50th, but why the flying is important is it generates 80% of our revenues.
That's your football program.
That is our football program that we have to operate and be successful in 6 days.
Right.
So a lot of people ask me, what's the difference? It should be easier for you over at Sun and Fun because there's not a lot going on. It's only 6 days. Actually, I would say in some instances it's harder because 80% of your revenues is coming in 6 days.
Right.
Right? A business, airport, whatever.
Weather
you
can have such a huge impact on you.
knock on wood. But I mean, that keeps me up at night, to be quite honest, because you have to get it right. Number one, for those 6 days, you got to have the programming in place to get it right, to drive the bodies there that want to come see all the stuff that you're producing. And then there's all these other variables that I don't control, but at least in a business, you've got ebbs and flows, obviously, but you got 12 months, you can forecast. It's really a
Right.
crapshoot on what you're going to be able to do.
And one bad day doesn't wreck your whole.
No, one bad
whole
day doesn't
program.
wreck the whole program, but moving forward, we have to diversify our
Right.
revenues.
No, one bad
obviously.
day as an airport doesn't
Yes,
wreck your
no,
whole thing.
you're
One out
fine.
of 6 bad days.
Yes.
That starts taking a dent.
That starts to
You feel it.
I feel it immediately. It's not fun. But that's the difference, because with the flying, basically you plan all year and then you unpack this thing, you operate for 6 days, you pack it back up, and you're going to go back to it next year and you're going
Right.
to plan. But it's hard. People come in, there's a lot of expectations. You're parking cars, you're moving airplanes in and out, you're moving people around the acreage around the grounds and trams. We
got
tram
campers
systems,
everywhere,
I got
you got
campers,
people.
I got police officers, I got fire rescue.
And you got planes on the runways they're taxiing from one place to the other, and there's people walking across.
Yes.
I
And
mean, you
got-
do a good job of saying, hey, don't walk because we got a jet
Yes.
coming through, we got a plane, but
It's controlled chaos. I mean, when I was running the airport, one of the air traffic controllers that I was friends with at the time, that was working the event, he's like, this is just basically controlled chaos. I was like, that's a great way to put it, because
Right.
that's what it is. But we do it safe, and we have great volunteers, and we have over 2,500 volunteers that come out to help us put on this event. But again, it is a huge deal for us. And I think what's important for the listeners and people to appreciate, though, is again, it generates 80% of our revenue, but our net proceeds go directly back
Right.
into the Aerospace Center for Excellence and all of our educational program that is developed for our families and our kids
Right.
here in Polk County, right? And it's not going anywhere else. It's here in our programming for our kids right here at home.
and is the mission of the Aerospace Center, is it to start start training pilots and start educating A&P mechanics, start getting kids excited about getting in the
In aerospace.
aerospace
Yep.
business as they get older, whether they're a pilot, whether they fix them or break them or paint them or whatever.
Well,
they
our
do.
mission at the Aerospace Center for Excellence is to engage, educate, and accelerate the next generation of aerospace professionals. So that's a mouthful, right? But it's all the things you just described. So kind of to lay it all out for you. So we have the Central Florida Aerospace Academy on the airport. So it's our aviation high school that's attached to Kathleen, right? Which is a great program, great partnership with Polk County Public Schools. We're very fortunate to have it. But long story short, a gentleman by the name of Mr. James Ray came to town back in 2010. So the high school, the program started in 2008, much smaller facilities on
Right.
our campus. And so Mr. Ray came and in 2010, saw the program, was completely impressed, and stroked a check for $7.5 million that day to Sun and Fun to build that school. So we built it. We own the school. The Polk County Public School Board leases the building from us. Those monies each month go into our foundation to provide, in the Central Florida Aerospace Academy Foundation, to provide scholarships to any kid that goes to that school or lives here in the county to get their private pilot certificate paid for free.
And where is the statue to Mr. Ray
It's,
sitting?
we have it's in the school, actually. It's not a
Good
bust
Lord.
or anything like that, but there's a big
That is
painted
amazing.
picture of him. He loved kids. He believed in kids, and he felt like, and he was a World War II B-17 pilot, right?
Wow.
And he believed, that if kids could just, not that they needed to be pilots or be airline pilots or whatever, but if they could get their private pilot certificate and they get in that airplane and they experience the freedom of flight by themselves and they're in control, that just changes their whole dynamic and trajectory.
Well,
Right.
I mean, you look at you as an example. You weren't the pilot, but you were around your dad
Yep.
and his business and the company and the business that he was in, and that motivated you to say, "Hey, this is something I think I'd like to
Yeah,
do."
but I mean, this is something, and to be able to provide these scholarships, and these are $10,000 to $12,000 scholarships, right, to get your private pilot certificate. We have 175 certificated pilots now through our program.
Okay.
We also give out about $100,000 worth of scholarships to our graduating seniors from CFAA each year as well. So it's a very robust. There's money there, and we need more kids actually to sign up. So we award about 2 to 3 scholarships a month at this point.
That's awesome.
And so it's an awesome program, and we're very fortunate. What's cool though, a lot of people don't know this, is that there is a CFAA Winter Haven at Winter Haven
Yep.
Gilbert Field.
And that's new.
It's
Well, it's new
been
at
there.
Winter Haven, isn't it?
Well, it's been there for a couple years,
Okay.
about probably 3 or 4 years. But actually, following Sun and Fun last year, in April last year, we did a ribbon company cutting on the portables that the Polk County schools put in at the airport there to accommodate the program. Right now, we're working on some other stuff to get them hopefully a brick and mortar building built there at the airport. So that's going to be a big thing for us. But we could not do it. Just getting back to all the success. That like me and my team had when I was at the airport. This county, there are so many good people that get it, and the partnerships and relationships, and like it's easy for us to talk about it, right? Because we're here, and it's not just lip service, but everybody. It is such a cool place to be. We could not have gotten done, whether at the airport and now Sun and Fun, get done the things we have been able to accomplish or will do without all these
They're
partnerships.
just so
People
generous.
get it.
Yes, we've got to invest, and
Yep.
it is amazing thing. I love living in Polk County. I've lived here my whole life, except when I went off to college, and always wanted to come back here and raise a family. So let's talk about Sun and Fun. That'll be the kind of the sexy part of the show today.
Yep.
What's new and when is it coming up? And what new do you have planned? What's returning? What's the fun part about it?
Yeah, so it's April 9th through the 14th this year. So I think right now it's right upon us, but it's our 50th, and we're going to have a party. We're going to celebrate. I mean, for a not-for-profit to make it for 50 years is basically start as a volunteer organization. They didn't even have their first paid employee until 10 years into Sun and Fun. Right, it was all volunteer, but we have 2,500 volunteers that show up each year to help us put on this great event. But again, our 50th, Sarah Evans will be here on day one, April 9th, starting at 6 o'clock. So if you go out and buy a ticket, you want to come for the daily air show, it starts at 1, runs to 5, stay for the concert, it's all one ticket. So it's not a separate charge or anything like that. But it's our way of saying thank you to all of our aviation friends and volunteers and our community as well for our folks hopefully come out for it. To say thank you and to kick off a great week for us. And, moving on, throughout the rest of the week, we have over 500 exhibitors that come from around the world to come to the event to, especially obviously aviation businesses and companies to, show everybody their new wares or the new little gadgets and stuff like that, new aircraft or whatnot,
Right.
To sell and introduce that to the aviation community. And our daily air shows will be great. Thunderbirds are back this year. The F-35 TAC demo, F-18 TAC demo, big warbird contingent. So if we have World War II aircraft lovers out there, big World War II contingent coming, warbirds
Right.
with the Commemorative Air Force, Fifi, the B-29's coming, Diamond Lil, the B-24. We have a special guest, a special airplane that I can't even announce yet that's coming. So there's going to be some very, very unique, one-of-a-kind airplanes there this year, especially on the warbird side.
One of the groups you had in a couple years ago, I don't remember what they were called, and it might even have predated you. It was American and Japanese planes flying
Yes,
things around
Tora Tora.
Tora.
Guess what? They're coming back this year.
Oh my gosh,
They will be there.
that to me was the most impressive thing. And they've got the loudspeakers blaring, of hey, we got incoming. I mean, it's recreating.
It's the Pearl Harbor reenactment, right? It's a huge.
And I'm thinking, how do these guys not crash?
Yes.
Because they look like total pandemonium.
Yep.
But then after you watch it for a few minutes, you realize, hey, this is the same plane doing a figure eight or loop or whatever their thing was. So it's actually highly choreographed.
Yes.
But from the ground and how low they're flying, it makes you feel like you're there, and you set off some inert bombs out in the infield,
there's
and
pyrotechnics, and
probably is a better word than bombs.
Yes.
But it was so neat to see that. That was, that to me was the second best thing, other than seeing the military planes come in and all that. So they're coming back.
Oh yeah, Tor will be here as well, and they're part of the commemorative Air Force as well, so they'll be here. But also some of those, the B-29, B-24, P-51, they're going to do ride hops this year. So if it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, you want to get a ride in a B-29 or B-24 or P-51, T-6, T-34, you can do that this year. So we're pretty excited to be able to offer that as well too to our guests that come out. Some of them are not.
Buy a ticket?
Well, you buy a ticket, yeah. So you buy our ticket, you come in, but you have to buy a ticket from them as well.
To get on that
But
plane.
some of them are not necessarily cheap. But you know,
Right.
it's all about keeping these beautiful airplanes flying as well, because they cost a tremendous amount to maintain.
I can imagine.
Yep.
What I also noticed is there's and I think you mentioned it, there's a huge military component to the air show.
Yes.
Whether it's helicopters, whether it's a C-135 or whatever the big planes are,
Sure.
the fighters, it seems like a great recruiting opportunity, and I'm sure the military uses that to bring you into the aviation world, whether you're in military. And if you walk around with someone who's an actual pilot and who flew in the military, it's really kind of fun getting almost a guided tour of, hey, this is what this plane will do. So,
And that's what it's all about, just like you said. I mean, the reason they are here and the force that they are is to recruit, right? So the Thunderbirds, their whole mission, Blue Angels Thunderbirds, is to recruit.
Yep.
You know, the TAC demos, to recruit. All the static military aircraft that come, to recruit. Some of them are coming, obviously, to have a good time as well, because we put on a great show and we have got great hospitality for them, because we appreciate, obviously, their service. But again, their primary focus is to recruit. So they have, even the recruiting offices here locally are out there, and they've got displays and, you know, little, 10 by 10 tents that they pop up and whatnot. So, they can introduce our young folks to opportunities in the military, which are very, very, they're great opportunities out there.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This is Stephanie Connors, President and CEO of Baycare, and I'm excited to promote this awesome platform. With each episode, Todd continues to interview some of the most intriguing individuals, and you are not going to want to miss them. That being said, don't forget to subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app.
if you've never been to the Sun and Fun, please come out. I mean, it's a great family experience. It's a pretty darn cool thing to see if you've never really been around the planes.
Yep.
You'd mentioned the vendors, and they've got guys and gals selling anything that touches an airplane. I walk around my son, who's a mechanic in the business, and he kind of tells me, hey, this is what this does, and it's like, you have to have a booth for that, but someone's got to have that tool, or someone's got to have that part, and so it's really kind of a neat thing. What's the future of air shows? I mean, do you think are they getting too expensive to put on? There's Paris, and there's one in England.
Well, I mean,
are those the big ones over in Europe?
There's really different kinds of shows, right? So our show in Air Venture up in Oshkosh, those are basically conventions for general aviation enthusiasts, right? And air show folks, people that love air shows, but they're 7 and 6 days, right? Then you have, cities like when I was in Dayton, they have an annual air show, but it's, basically it's Saturday, Sunday. Friday's the practice day, Saturday, Sunday. Orlando, they have the same thing at Orlando Sanford Airport, all across the country. There's hundreds of them, right? All across the country. But when you look at like Paris or Farnborough, those are basically trade shows for military. There's, they're like weapon swaps. I mean, everybody's buying, all the countries are there, various militaries are there to, meet with Boeing and Lockheed or other, defense contractors to buy stuff or buy Airbus or buy Boeing and stuff like that. Now they'll have an air show, on the weekend for like the citizens, the general public, but basically it's a trade show, a swap meet for all the commercial side of, whether it's defense or, airlines and things like that. So
there's no money budgeted in the program for you to go over there. So just don't even think you're going there.
Yeah. Oh, well, I've been to Paris Air Show 3 times, so I've seen it, right? And so I can, can at least, like from my experience, that's what I experience. So much different than what we do. But I will tell you, like for Sun and Fun specifically, it's expensive to put on this air show because, for example, even the Thunderbirds, they don't come for free. So we have to pay for rental cars, which is about $25. So vans, rental cars, trucks, all this stuff. Plus we pay them an appearance fee. So they have some incidentals, right? And don't quote me. I want to say it's anywhere from $12,500 to $15,000 or something like that, just to get them here for incidentals and other things. It's part of their specs that they send us that we have to follow. But like the civilian air show performers, because we're a not-for-profit and we're a volunteer organization, they come for free. but we have to give them rental cars. We got to put them up in hotels. All that stuff starts to get really, really expensive. Tents, whether it's Polk County Sheriff's Office, which all of our whether it's Polk County Sheriff's Office, LPD, Lakeland Fire Department, Polk County Fire Rescue, they do a phenomenal job for us. But we pay them as well, because it's not like your tax dollars are just paying for all
And
this.
fire rescue. You
rescue.
got ambulance, you got medics
Absolutely.
around.
We have, God forbid we ever need it, but it's all there ready to go. But our first responders do an awesome job for us, so we appreciate them. Traffic control out on Pipkin,
Yep.
right? Polk County Sheriff's
what a
Office.
nightmare.
But they do a great job for us, and so their participation is really very much appreciated. But we pay for all those things, so it's not a free ride.
About how many golf carts do y'all use?
450. It's probably plus or minus 20, right? But
Wow.
the number's about 450. And right there, I'll tell you, golf carts, last year we paid $175,000 to rent golf carts. This year we got a new company coming in, it's about $140, right? All the tents we produce, last year is about $550,000. This year it's about $450,000. We have a new tent company. They're closer. We had to pay for all this freight and shipping from Texas and Michigan or places up north. But our new company's here in Orlando, so it makes it much easier. But it's a very, very expensive event to produce.
So one of the hats you wear is also as chairman of the Polk County Economic Development Council.
Yep.
You talked about it briefly. What's the economic impact that Sun and Fun brings in, and not just to Lakeland, but they park their planes all over. They
Sure.
stay in hotels all over, whether it's Polk County or Hillsborough or other counties close by. I'm sure there's been studies. What have y'all been able to say? This is what Sun and Fun's generating.
It's hard, because when I ran the airport, we did economic impact studies,
Right.
and Sun and Fun's done them in the past. I would say it's anywhere between 150 to 200 million, because it's not only Sun and Fun are flying for 6 days, but it's the year-round activities. So when you think about the high school, our foundation where we're just doling out money, the money's not going to us, it's going to flight schools, whether it's at Lakeland, it's going to Winter Haven, it's going to Bartow airports, right, to pay, for fuel and use of all these airplanes. But we have year-round events out there as well. We have camping, campgrounds that we lease out and rent. We rent out our facilities year-round to Sims Crane, for example. They just had a big 65th celebration out there a couple weekends ago, and they basically took over the whole campus to do this, which was great. So we do those things, the other 51 weeks out of the year. But real quick, just back to our educational programming real quick as well. All the funds that we generate from Sun and Fun go back in our programming. We built the innovation, or the Skylab Innovation Center a couple years ago.
Right.
And these are purpose-built STEM-based labs, right? And so this year we have 4,000 fifth graders coming through our Skylab Innovation Center. And we want to get them as early as possible, but that's in partnership with our airports, and we're paying for the bus transportation, right? So we're injecting more money back to get all these kids in there. Polk County is a big county,
Right.
right?
Nothing's close.
Nothing is close, but so we're busing all these kids in. But with our partnerships with the airports, we're getting them here and paying the Polk County Public Schools. So we're injecting money, everywhere. So it's a great thing.
So I heard you on another podcast earlier, and you had talked about the different programs and field trips that the kids get to come out, and it's homeschool kids can come
Correct.
out. You have programs for homeschool. So folks, if you're listening and you say, well, I don't, traditionally educate my child, there are ways for them to come out and get exposed to the programs that you have out there at ACE.
Yeah, no, I have
different things.
educators on my team, right? So when I got there 2 years ago, we had about 27 employees. Now we have over 40. And so the most of that plus up are educators, right?
Right.
So we have educators on staff. They have built purpose, field trips for the different grade levels. So whether you're homeschool, magnet school, charter school, you're a fifth grader in Polk County Public Schools, all you got to do is look us up on aceedu.org and get your field trips booked and bring your kiddos in, because that's what we're all about. The other 151 weeks out of the year, and again,
Right.
net proceeds go back into all of this, and it's all about those kids. And it's not. And, for the kiddos, it's, we don't need everybody to be a pilot,
Right.
Again, I'm not a pilot, right? We need mechanics, like you talked about. We need air traffic controllers. We need engineers, right? We just need kids to participate in the sciences, and they'll find their own way.
Right.
But we give them those tools to help, at least get them interested. That's the goal.
Well, every profession is out trying to grab these kids when they're young, and the aerospace is certainly one. Medical, everybody's looking to help refill their coffers when
Sure.
they're their folks age out and term out. So,
Yep.
kind of coming to a close, but I've got a lightning round. I'd like to ask you some quick questions that won't change anyone's lives. But are you a good reader?
I do not like to read. I will read trades. I read social media. I'll read at Fox News or CNN. I'll read stories or whatever, but I do not read books. I do not like it.
I'm
I
not
get
a big
bored.
reader too. I think if I'd been a better reader, I'd have been a better student and had better grades.
I had to force myself to read anything, even in college or high school. It was horrible. I hate it.
What's your favorite food?
I don't know. I'll give you three because these would always be my go-tos. I love steak. I love brats because of Wisconsin, and I love pizza.
How about on the grounds during those 6 days? Is there a booth that you say, I got to go back and get that fried dough or this chicken or turkey leg or whatever? Is there anything that you say, I go
to the military hospitality area because they always have great food. There's always barbecue, there's chicken, there's hot dogs, there's hamburgers, there's always something warm. And during those 6 days, I'm so busy, I just need something to eat, and that's my go-to.
Do you like to travel?
I love to travel.
What's your favorite place to go in the United States, and do you travel outside the United States?
In the United States, because I go up there every summer. I love Wisconsin.
Right.
I love going to Oshkosh. It's just home.
Still have family up there?
I still have my oldest sister. She lives up there. She's actually number 2 in the school system up there. So go up there every year. And but I will tell you, I got remarried in 2018, and so in February 2019, we went to Bora Bora for our honeymoon. Nothing like it. It's unbelievable.
It's quite a trip to get over there.
It was a long trip. So it was Orlando to Atlanta. It was Orlando to Atlanta, Atlanta to LA, LA to Tahiti, and then Tahiti to Bora Bora. So it was about 24 hours.
Good Lord. I flew to Hawaii once, and it was Orlando to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Honolulu.
Yeah.
And I said, is there not somewhere we could stop on the
Yes.
United States to get us 4 hours closer?
Yep.
And of course, there was a problem on the plane, so we stopped in Houston or Dallas. I forgot where to fix it, and we did fine. But that's a long flight over there.
Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Top Gun 1986. Not the second one, Top Gun 1986.
Yeah, I enjoyed the second one too.
Yep. It was good, but you lost me when the F-14 was sitting there.
Right.
And they just happened to it would just happen to work and all that, because I don't even know where to get parts for that thing anymore, because we're not, no one in the U.S. isn't using it. But anyway, that kind of lost me a little bit there.
So you have a little too much education on
Yes, I know
the
too
technical
much.
side
My
of
wife
it.
always gives me grief. She's like, "Oh, stop saying that."
So who's going to play you in your life story? What movie stars will play you in your life story?
Oh my gosh. Chris Pratt.
Okay, that's an interesting. I never thought that was coming, but you could have said Tom Cruise, but apparently you've insulted him because you didn't like his second movie.
I like Tom Cruise. One thing I know about Tom Cruise is if you watch his movies, he runs or sprints in every one of his movies. By the way, I'm sure everybody knows that, but I just realized that several years ago. But I'm not.
You're too tall.
Yeah, he's not tall. Yeah, exactly. Plus, he's too good looking.
Well, that's debatable. What's your favorite sport to watch?
College football.
So I think you answered it earlier. If Auburn was playing Ohio State for the national championship,
Crush Ohio State.
do you go to Auburn games?
Oh yes,
Do you wear the coat and tie?
I did not. I mean, that's for like my fraternity friends and stuff like that. They did all that stuff. I was not in a fraternity. But my first Auburn game was the 1989 Iron Bowl that they had the first time versus Alabama in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Okay.
It was nuts. I was like, I already loved it, but I'm like, I was hooked at that point. It was just nuts.
So I had a couple of buddies that went to Auburn. They were fraternity guys, and they say, "Oh yeah, we wear coat and tie." I said, "Are you kidding? At Florida, we barely have a shirt on."
Yeah.
If you get in there in shorts, the reason you wear long pants is to smuggle something in your boots.
There you go.
So, what's your favorite music?
People will be surprised by this answer. I love EDC, electric dance, carnival music. A lot of people would not People would not expect that of me. One of the best times I had as of late was in October. I went to EDC Orlando. 300,000 people over 3 days. It was super cool. Everybody was chill. I love it. I mean, people are like, "What?" But it's amazing. I love that music.
So it sounds like you should be dancing for polk education.
I did that already.
Did you win?
I did. I got second place.
That's pretty
impressive. I did do that. Yep.
That's impressive.
Yep.
How do you handle stress? How do you de-stress? I mean, there are days that I'm sure are just overwhelming.
Yep.
And you really can't take it home. It's not fair to the family.
Yep.
But there's days that you just say, "Holy crap.
Yep.
And other days are pretty good. But how do you deal with it when things really kind of build up?
Well, I've learned over time, especially when I first got here to, run the airport in Lakeland, when we like lost direct air, for example, when they shut down, I mean, my heart hurt, like my chest hurt because I was wearing it so hard. And at that point after that, I can't wear it as much as I do. I can't do that anymore. So I compartmentalize. I'm basically going day to day. And when I go home at night, look, I know there's a lot on my plate. There is every day for everybody. But I'm like, guess what? It'll be there tomorrow.
Right.
I will be back on it tomorrow. But I just have to leave it behind when I go home. And not that I can do that every day. You still wear it when you go home and stuff like that. But I try to compartmentalize and just go day to day. I'm thinking about the future, obviously, always. But just how I need to operate during the day, I just go one day at a time, to be honest.
I think you have to adopt that for a healthy lifestyle is you can't wear it on your sleeve 24 hours a day. And like you said, it'll be there tomorrow or it'll be there on Monday.
Yep.
And you do have to get away from stuff and focus on why you work so hard. And that's your family.
And I like to work out. I go to Orange Theory at Lakeside Village. And so I go there about 2-3 times a week. So that helps my brain quite a bit too.
So you're not a pilot, but if you could pilot any plane in the world, if you could wake up and say, hey, I got the skills to fly any plane out there, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, that's a hard one. I mean, I'm probably a P-51.
Really?
Yes.
Not one of the fast jets that are out there right now?
I mean, it's just the P-51, its sound just growing up around warbirds and, air shows my whole life. It's such a unique airplane. It's super sleek. It's just one of the coolest airplanes ever produced, and it's beautiful. I would love it.
That really bright, shiny silver. It's
an amazing airplane.
Yeah. Have you ever had any interest in going up with the hurricane hunters or riding through a hurricane, or maybe you have? I don't know.
Oh, great story. So I've flown in the P3. So when we completed their facility in 2017, they were moving one of the P3s over. We went to MacDill and flew over with them. So that was cool. Me and Brad Lunds and some of my team members.
Right.
Brad Lunds from the Lunds group or whatnot. So that was great. But I was offered to go up in one of the hurricanes, and I said I appreciate the offer. But if I'm going to fly 8 to 9 hours and go somewhere, I'm going to Europe. I'm not flying through a hurricane for 8. There's no way that's happening.
I would think it would be highly stressful. I mean, they must all be successful because you don't hear of them going down.
Yep.
And must be incredible pilots, and the planes are probably built like a brick house. So it's a testament to the engineering and the mechanics.
Yeah, and Congressman Ross did it.
Yeah.
Back when he was our congressman, he went up with them, and I think he went through, I want to say Maria, one of the worst storms ever recorded. But after that storm, after his flight, they had to pop all the inspection plates on the airplane because they overstressed the airplane. That's how much they were getting thrown around.
I heard he was 2 inches shorter when he got off the airplane.
He was probably 6 inches shorter, but it's
pounds
a,
lighter,
it's
too.
a rough ride. I mean, it's amazing what they do out there. So I commend them for what they do.
Do you see politics in your future at some point? Elected office? I mean, you are political and how you have to deal with the politics of life, but do you ever see yourself holding yourself out for election?
I mean, I talk about it sometimes.
You would be very good at it.
I don't know.
You would. You've got a great demeanor and you're smart, you're educated, you come prepared.
Yeah, I've talked about it a little bit with some of my closest friends, and I've talked about it with my wife in the past or whatnot. She's like, absolutely not. But maybe there's a time for that at some point. I mean, I just feel like like a lot of elected officials, I just feel like I could make a difference, right? And I know a lot, and I've been around a long time. So not only running the airport, but anything that we did when I was with the city of Lakeland, I was at all of the commission meetings. I understand the process. I understand the various departments and how these things works and how much complexity there is to all of this, right?
There are no simple problems and no simple solutions.
That's correct. And so there's maybe you never know. I mean, but I talk about it sometimes, about it.
When I decided to run, people said, are you crazy? And I said, unless you have better quality people running,
correct,
you get better quality outcomes and decisions with people who have made those decisions in real life and have had their own money or have their own reputation at stake. So it is important. And I'm a big believer that if you can run, you should. It's not for everybody, but it'll certainly give you a better appreciation, and it gives you the right to be that crotchety old fart at the end of the day saying, they don't know what they're doing down there, and if I was different when I was there.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten really good at this because when I was running the airport, whether it was reading social media or it was reading comments on various stories or whatnot, I used to just want to get on there, fire and brimstone, and like tear people up and like verbal, with my words and all these other things. But And now, I don't care about that stuff. I mean, people are going to be people. There's always 1% that are never going to be happy with whatever it is you do or you say or decide. It's just never going to be good enough. But, I've tempered my...
That's called maturity.
Yes. So I've
the
learned...
The gray is not there for looks.
Yes, I know. I've learned to just...
It.
Sometimes you're just better to keep your mouth shut and it goes away.
Is there anything, we're kind of wrapping up here, is there anything that I've not asked you that you thought I would or that maybe you wanted me to? We covered everything we need to talk about for the Sun and Fun. Anything that
no,
said, I really wish you'd have said something about this?
No, I mean, again, I think the biggest thing, if I could leave your listeners with, is, again, Sun and Fun's been here for 50 years. And, a lot of people, they'll watch the air show for whether it's our friends at the Ruthvens or, across the street on Drainfield or on Pipkin or whatnot. And, like, hey, I don't need to go in or it costs too much. And I appreciate that. I mean, there's a cost to it. But kids 10 and under free. It's $45 for adults. I mean, so it's not that bad. But, it's when you come and you participate, though, and you're on the grounds with us, number one, you're going to get a better experience, right? You're going to hear the Thunderbirds and the announce. You're going to feel it. You're in front of it. By the way, Saturday and Sunday, our fireworks this year, and I said this kind of maybe the wrong way to some of my municipality friends, but I know they put on great fireworks, but our fireworks really put it's amateur hour. Our fireworks their fireworks are amateur hour compared to ours. I mean, because we're really putting a lot because we got airplanes in it, we got pyro fireworks. This year maybe some other elements are really cool, but again, when you come out there's a huge entertainment piece to all of this stuff, but also again, when you come out and you spend the money there, you're putting it back into your community. You're putting it back into our programs for your families and the opportunities that we're going to be able to create for those kids to, learn something new or maybe be inspired to do something cool in aerospace.
But if you're going to come on the ground, you got to be prepared to walk, wear comfortable shoes, because it starts from where you park till you get all the way in. And once you get there,
bring your sunscreen,
a hat.
Bring a hat. We have a tram system and all of that. So, and it's a condensed area, but we want people to get around, see all the airplanes and all that. So we're moving a lot of people around all the time. But it can be a long day, but we have new areas too. And we're going to have more shade tents up this year, more places for people to sit and take care of their, make sure they have a great experience. But it's a great day.
It is.
It is a great day.
It is. Well, I want to thank my guest, Gene Conrad, the CEO of the Aerospace Center for Excellence and the Sun and Fun that's going to be coming up on April 9th through the 14th. I appreciate you coming in and letting the folks know a little bit about you, what influenced you growing up, kind of how you lead and some of the challenges that you've had once you've gotten here, either with Lakeland Linder or now over with the Sun and Fun. And I fully appreciate the direction you're taking your organization, the fact that you can coordinate 2,500 volunteers,
it's a lot.
420 golf carts,
and
all that goes with that. I think it's a wonderful thing. And folks, if you haven't been out to the Sun and Fun, I encourage you to do so. Go online. What's the website?
It's flysnf.org, April 9th through the 14th, 2024.
And you've got a schedule of events, so if you say, hey...
Yeah, so we're getting ready to post that actually next week for the air show schedule, daily 1 to 5, night shows are from 7 to 9, so there's all-day entertainment every single day out there.
So look and see what the shows are, the planes that you want to see, but the cost of admission is worth it just to get on the grounds and walk around and just expose yourself to what's going on in the aeronautical business. So,
absolutely.
Gene, thank you very much. Thank you for what you do for Polk County and for your leadership here. And
thanks you, Todd. And thanks for all you've done. Obviously, your service with the Board of County Commissioners and with CFDC and other organizations.
Yep,
so I've been around a long time now, kind of 14 years, but I've seen you out and about. You do a lot for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey everybody, I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. As always, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions for future guests, please call or text our number at 863-288-0944 or visit todddantzler.com. Again, that's 863-288-0944 or visit my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.